Magnesium is a water-hungry molecule, and this explains why the Celtic salt is such a moist salt, especially when we've had a lot of rain, because those 3 magnesiums absorb the moisture. And because magnesium is a water-hungry molecule, it can be used to help the water get into the cell. So when you take a crystal of Celtic salt, put it on your tongue, and some say, how big's a crystal? Well, if you've got high blood pressure, start small, about the size of a sesame seed. I don't have high blood pressure, so I might have about 3 times little sesame seeds. Put it on your tongue, your mucous membranes start absorbing the minerals, the magnesium is taken to the cell membrane, and you drink your water, and that magnesium pulls that water inside the cell. It's the quickest way to hydrate a body. Table salt will get the blood pressure up, but Dr. Jacques de Langry, when he gets a patient with high blood pressure, you know what he puts them on? He puts them on the Celtic salt. Because what that does is that gets a proper balance of fluid in and out of the cell. And how many, in nutrition world today, how many people have gone from overdoing the table salt to no salt? And both extremes are dangerous. When someone has high amounts of table salt, have you noticed people put it on and they don't even taste the food? That's because the table salt, the sodium chloride, is so harsh that it kills the taste buds. So no wonder they have to put so much on. Kills the taste buds. But the salt that we use is Celtic. And the Celtic salt, and it's called the Celtic salt because it's hand harvested by the traditional Celtic method. It's in Brittany, in France, 4.5 million acres of these beautiful salt flats where it's a hand-harvested sea salt.
What if you were told that cutting salt from your diet could actually harm your health rather than doing good? Forget everything you thought you knew about salt, because this video will change the way you used to look at your salt shaker. Barbara O'Neill is ready to bust 5 myths about salt that could be keeping you from achieving your best self. So, without any further ado, let's get right to it. Do you know about the 4 vital elements that your body needs at all costs? Well, if you don't, now you will. Those are oxygen, water, sodium, and potassium. Yes,
These 4 vital elements needed for life indicate what we need. Number 1 is oxygen. Now that's not a surprise. Oxygen's the most vital element needed for life. Number 2 is water, and that's not a surprise. But what's a surprise to most people is the 3rd vital element needed for life is sodium.
Sodium is one of the electrolytes or minerals in your body that you need in large amounts. These electrolytes have an electric charge when they break down in bodily fluids like blood. Almost all of the sodium is found in blood, or fluids around body cells. Sodium doesn't only keep a balance in fluids, but also maintains normal nerve and muscle function. You can obtain sodium through a healthy diet, which later leaves your body in the form of sweat and urine. If your kidneys are healthy, they will ensure the proper level of sodium in your body by excreting the appropriate amount of sodium in urine or sweat. But if the amount of lost sodium doesn't equal your consumption, the total amount of sodium in your body gets affected. As people age, their bodies become unable to maintain a balance between fluid and sodium levels due to a number of reasons like decreased thirst, medications, and changes in kidney function. If your body has low sodium levels, you will eventually develop conditions like dizziness, muscle cramps, nausea, and even vomiting. It turns out that salt isn't bad or harmful after all, and your body requires it even if you have high blood pressure. Let's now have a look at those 5 myths, including the one about high blood pressure. Myth #1. All salt is bad for you. The first myth is that no salt is good for your health. You might have heard about it a lot, but it's not true. While there are several types of salt that people use in their dishes, such as kosher salt, pink Himalayan salt, iodized salt, rock salt, and others, the most common one is table salt, which almost everyone uses in their cooking. Many people avoid every type of salt, but they don't know that too much or none at all is equally harmful. We often end up accepting the general advice that if you want to maintain your blood pressure, you need to cut down on oil and salt. not realizing that different types of salts and oils could be beneficial for us. Barbara O'Neill says the only best natural alternative for conventional salt is Celtic salt. When it comes to Celtic salt, you can no longer connect the statement, "all salt is bad for you," with it. Why? Well, to understand this, we first need to look at how exactly table salt is manufactured. It is a crystalline product that is made through seawater evaporation or underground salt mines. In other words, you can call it sodium chloride.
Sea salt contains how many minerals? 2. And these are such harsh minerals that if you were to inject them straight into the blood, the person would die.
This seawater evaporation method is centuries old and involves channeling seawater into shallow ponds called salt pans. Then the seawater, which has 94 minerals, with 30.8% sodium, 55% chloride, and the rest of the other minerals, is left under the sun for evaporation, and later, the salt crystals are formed. These salt crystals, known as sodium chloride, are scooped out, bleached, and refined to get rid of impurities. The final product is often mixed with anti-caking agents like aluminum derivatives, with most minerals removed. That's how your sodium chloride is prepared. Barbara O'Neill says this type of salt is worse and harsher for your body, as it disrupts body fluid balance, leading to severe health conditions. Table salt with only sodium chloride, as minerals can even kill your taste buds over time. When people consume a lot of it in their foods, they cannot feel the taste of their foods anymore, and thus they begin using more of it to enhance flavor again.
Let's have a look at the largest concentration of sodium we find in seawater. It has 92 minerals. And I did mention this the other day, so we'll recap. So 30% of those 92 minerals is sodium, and 50% is chloride, approximately. And because these are they're the minerals in the largest amount, what man does is he scoops off the sodium chloride crystals, bleaches it white, puts aluminium with it, and comes up with table salt.
Therefore, to make this myth sound right, you can replace no salt with table salt. We'll dive deeper into Celtic salt in the next myth busting.
Minerals in the
Myth hash 2. Salt has no nutritional value.
It does.
Well, if we are talking about the table salt here, then we can say it's true. Table salt has no nutritional value except for sodium and chloride, which are harmful if taken without other minerals. But this myth can be busted only if you go for natural Celtic salt. Similar to table salt, this is also extracted in the same way from the coastlines after seawater is evaporated. However, it doesn't have any added chemicals or undergo processing. Barbara O'Neill says Celtic salt has around 80 different minerals, including calcium, magnesium, iron, zinc, potassium, and others, making it the perfect choice for a healthy lifestyle. Celtic salt is also called sel gris, or grey salt, because of its grey color developed due to the mentioned minerals.
Celtic salt, it contains 82 minerals. How come not 92? Some are in such pico proportions, barely measurable, that it's inevitable that a few are lost. See, these 2 minerals are so harsh, they need all the other minerals to soften them or buffer them.
Compared to other salts like Himalayan, another sea salt, Celtic sea salt, has more magnesium and calcium. Table salt, however, has significantly more sodium than both Celtic and Himalayan salts, which makes it a forbidden salt. During the earlier times, Celtic salt was collected from the Celtic seas near northwestern France, but it is now available on other coastlines as well. Since it is hand-harvested, the minerals present in this salt are in a balanced form. Compared to table salt, the grain of Celtic salt is much bigger, and unlike table salt, the water from this salt is not evaporated entirely. To use it as a staple, you might need to use a salt grinder to break crystals into small grains. Most importantly, Celtic salt is good at cancelling out the negative effects of sodium in your body through its variety of minerals, which regular salt isn't capable of. One example is potassium, which helps reduce excess sodium in the body through urination and relaxing blood vessel walls. But wait, there's a lot more to Celtic salt than just lowering sodium amounts. We'll see about that in the next myth. Myth hash 3. Salt always raises blood pressure. Your doctor tells you to cut it down, or else you will suffer from high blood pressure. But is there any truth to it? Well, it does apply to some extent. Your doctor is actually talking about the table salt, and he isn't wrong, but it is also the other way around. The lack of salt can actually give you high blood pressure.
Chloride. Our hydrochloric acid is made from chloride, so chloride is important. So often people are told that they need to stop salt. Why are they told to stop salt? Because they're having too much of the sodium chloride, too much of the table salt. And because it's in an imbalanced form, it's causing an imbalance in the body, right down at the cellular level.
Do you know what happens at the cellular level when you consume table salt in excess? Every cell in your body is surrounded by a bilipid membrane with sodium-potassium pumps. These pumps are vital for creating a balance between sodium and potassium levels inside and outside of the cell. Sodium is present outside the cells in large quantities, while potassium in the same amounts stays inside the cell. But when you consume table salt, potassium levels drop inside the cells, and sodium levels outside the cell increase since it contains a large amount of sodium. This overpowers the process of potassium-sodium pumps. As a result, a process occurs called osmosis, in which sodium enters the cell in the presence of little to no potassium. When sodium levels rise too high in the cell begins to swell, resulting in high blood pressure.
So it's actually a dangerous salt. It's actually a poison. And when it goes into the body thinks it's getting all of those minerals, but it's not. It's just getting two. And it causes an imbalance in and out of the cell. The fourth vital element needed for life is potassium. And you get nice amounts of potassium in your fresh fruits and vegetables. And cayenne pepper is high in potassium. So the highest concentration of mineral inside the cell is potassium. The highest concentration outside the cell is sodium.
But the table salt does more than just that. Your kidney and heart health are also at risk because of your unhealthy routine. You might not know, but your high blood pressure is closely related to your kidney health. When your kidneys become compromised or are damaged, your blood pressure increases, which directly affects your heart. Your kidneys are capable of filtering out 120 quarts of blood every day, separating the toxins and excess fluid and sending them to the bladder for excretion. But here's the catch. When you consume a lot of table salt, your kidneys stop working properly, resulting in a buildup and ultimately an increase in your blood pressure. High blood pressure triggered by regular salt can harden and narrow your blood vessels, stopping them from transporting blood and oxygen to vital body organs. In response, the heart gets into action and pumps faster to get the blood flow working throughout the body, resulting in high blood pressure. A cardiologist, Dr. Luke Laffin, says chronic high blood pressure exerts a force on the heart, leading to extra growth of the left pumping chamber and weakening of heart muscles, which can result in heart failure.
One is getting too much sodium and not having enough potassium. Then the concentration of sodium rises, the concentration of potassium lowers, and because of osmosis diffusion, too much sodium starts to merge in to the cell. When too much sodium merges into the cell swells. There's your high blood pressure.
Continuous high blood pressure can also harm your artery walls, giving rise to fat buildup and doubling the risk of heart disease, stroke, or heart attack. If this cycle continues with the kidneys involved, you may first get kidney disease, which later leads to kidney failure. So, how do you make it right? Celtic salt is your only answer. Since it has a balanced amount of all vital minerals, it can never lead to high blood pressure. Barbara O'Neill mentioned a famous doctor and his way of treating his blood pressure patients. He recommends Celtic salt to them because it will easily balance the fluid inside and outside cells. Myth #4. Low-sodium diets are always healthy. This is often heard alongside the myth that salt raises blood pressure, and therefore, your doctor restricts you from having any salt, suggesting you go for low-sodium diets instead. This myth was already proven wrong at the start of the video when we mentioned the 4 vital elements: oxygen, water, sodium, and potassium. So, it confirms that you cannot survive in the absence of sodium. It plays an important role in many bodily functions. Let's begin with the first one: sodium as a glucose transporter. The lining of the gastrointestinal tract, called villi with spikes as carriers, is where the glucose is absorbed. However, It doesn't become part of your body until it comes with sodium. Some nutrients need more work than usual, and glucose is one of them. It needs sodium to enter the blood. In this case, sodium becomes the primary transporter of glucose and helps it reach the small intestine.
Lining the gastrointestinal tract are villi. On those villi are receptor sites, and these receptor sites are to take the glucose through and into the blood. Inside that receptor site there is a carrier, and the carrier is the one that takes the glucose through and into the blood. But the carrier says, I will not accept you glucose unless you come with a molecule of sodium.
When you go low on sodium, glucose remains unabsorbed in your blood, leading to nutrient deficiency. But the most important part is that when glucose doesn't enter cells fully, your energy levels drop too. This is exactly why people with low sodium diets feel exhausted easily. The second job of sodium is with your digestive system. Salt is essential for your digestion. How? It consists of chloride, which helps in the production of hydrochloric acid in your stomach. We all know hydrochloric acid acts as a dissolver and breaks down our food into small particles. So, if you really want to compromise your digestive health, you can choose your doctor's advice, going for low sodium diets.
And your hydrochloric acid is made from chloride. We cannot digest properly unless we're having adequate salt.
Proper salt intake with balanced minerals is important for energy, digestion, and overall health. Now, let's talk about proper hydration and its link with Celtic salt. We all agree that proper hydration is important for our overall health, but how do you achieve it? With the help of salt, which has a balanced amount of minerals, and that is your Celtic salt. Even if you drink a great deal of water to fight dehydration, it might not work the way you think. Without proper minerals like sodium and potassium, hydration will lead to the loss of important minerals, and the water you drink won't enter cells effectively. Thus, it will go to waste. While sodium and potassium are important, another element, magnesium, is equally important for water absorption. Celtic sea salt has plenty of magnesium, besides other elements.
Another answer is, if I drink too much water, my legs swell. These last two answers tell me that the water is not getting inside the cell. You know, there's been some deaths on the Kokoda Trail, and these people are drinking 5 litres of water a day. They're perspiring huge amounts. So the water's going in and the water's coming out, but it's not coming out as water. Have you ever licked your perspiration? It's very salty. These people are losing a lot of sodium, but not just sodium, they're losing a lot of other minerals.
When you put a crystal of Celtic salt on your tongue, even for merely a few seconds, your mucous membranes will quickly take in the magnesium present in it. It is a water-hungry molecule, and thus a helpful element in using water for good. Once it's in the blood, it gets to the cells and does the job by pulling water molecules into the cells. This is one of the quickest ways to hydrate your body. Barbara O'Neill recommends doing this practice 1 to 2 times a day. However, if you engage yourself in strenuous activities like exercise in summer or steam baths at night, you should follow this practice at least 3 times a day to keep your hydration levels maintained, if not high.
If I drink water, I'm just running to the bathroom all day. And some people say, but Barb, if I drink water, my legs swell. Do you know what that tells me? The water is not getting inside the cell. The cell is surrounded by what's called a bilayered membrane. This is a double-layered membrane. And the water needs help to get into the cell.
She says you might add Celtic salt to your glass of water, but it won't work as effectively as keeping its crystal on your tongue. If you put it in water, the magnesium will absorb all the water, and it won't be useful for your body anymore. But when it is directly taken by mouth, followed by a glass of water, it will appear more valuable. When the water is absorbed into the cell membranes, a tiny motor in the membranes gets triggered and begins spinning, resulting in a quick energy boost. Barbara O'Neill says, this energy boost is perfect for people who feel exhausted in mid-morning and feel the urge to have sugary snacks or caffeinated beverages. O'Neill advises us to keep Celtic salt handy, especially during exhaustive activities like walking the trail. It is found to have more magnesium than other salts, such as Himalayan or Murray River salt. But one thing is important to be considered. Since Celtic salt has added moisture content, its crystal may become clumpy in grinders if there is more than usual moisture content in the environment. Sea salt extracted from seawater is so powerful because it has the same mineral balance and proportion as in the human body, especially in the blood and intra- and extracellular fluids. Whenever there is an emergency during shipwrecks, the sailor manual advises sipping small amounts of seawater to meet the required mineral content and increase the chances of survival for up to days. The interesting part is this seawater was also used in older times during wars for a fascinating reason. In the absence of a regular blood supply, it used to work as a replacement for it.
You can see why in the sailor's manual it says if you're shipwrecked to start sipping little bits of seawater straight away. And it will keep you alive for many days. But if the person waits 3 days till they're very dehydrated, then drinks a whole glass of water, you can see that that will put the mineral balance in and out of their cells way out, and they certainly can start to go a little bit mad.
It tells how sodium and overall salt, like Celtic sea salt, are important for our lives. Plus, if we give up on proper hydration and mineral intake, we might fall victim to many serious health conditions like hypertension or high blood pressure. Dehydration can be another cause of your high blood pressure. When there isn't enough water in your body, the small capillary networks turn their functions off to preserve blood volume, which results in excessive pressure on other blood vessels. Thus, the high blood pressure. Mineral deficiencies can also damage your DNA structure, which in turn brings more serious issues. Myth #5. Iodized salt is the best source of iodine. It means that the salt has been chemically enriched with iodine using binders. Why is it not a good option to fulfill your iodine requirement? Let's find out. Iodine is a naturally occurring micronutrient, found commonly in many foods in coastal regions. However, finding it in the Earth's crust is nearly impossible, as it is a heavy element. Because the heavier the element, the less abundant it will become in nature. In many areas, the soil lacks enough iodine, and thus, vegetable crops don't seem to absorb any of it. This leaves us only one choice: infusing iodine into salts so people can easily obtain the required amount of this element. But there's a catch. Once you open the package of your iodized table salt, the iodine content in it fades away in both high temperature and humidity. It happens because it is an element that breaks down easily. Sometimes, even poor manufacturing practices and management can make iodized salt lose its required iodine amount. Thus, you don't get to meet your ideal requirements. On the other hand, Celtic salt, which is about 78% sodium chloride and 12% minerals and moisture, has a naturally occurring iodine content of about 0.68 parts iodine per million. It might not be a perfect source of iodine, but it is an all-natural and pure source that doesn't need any chemical binders to stay with the salt. Plus, the iodine from Celtic salt easily absorbs in your body and gets stored for later functions. Have you ever used Celtic salt in your food dishes? If you do, comment below. If you liked watching this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more healthy tips.